in the room. Who's been having a good time this morning? That's good. That's good. Who wants to do it again? All right. And who loves it? And that's the first important thing about most of what we do. Because if we have passion and if we feel strongly and we love something, it means we're going to work harder at it than we would otherwise work. Correct? This is an interactive session. You don't got to remain quiet with me. Yeah? Correct? I hear the older ones say it, I hear the younger ones say it. You really like it? Good. I want you to understand and appreciate that that is a key component in it. But never believe that technology is the be all and the end all of what you're doing. Because technology can be used for good and technology can be used for bad. And forgive me, the older ones, I'm going to speak to the younger ones in here today. And the understanding that if the younger ones get it, then the rest of us must get it too. And when we watch all of these superheroes movies, I'm not even young enough to know what your newest version of superheroes are. But in my day, it was the typical Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, again to her last. Hulk, you understand? Wonder Woman. And in all of these movies, you see people doing things, James Bond, all of those things, doing things with good and with bad, evil. And it is because it's just a tool. A car, at the end of the day, if driven slowly, can get you where you want to go, but it'll take longer. If driven quickly, can get you where you want to go, but it takes a shorter period of time. And if driven recklessly, can be a weapon that literally kills people, both those driving and those outside. And I want you to remember this because what matters, yes, is your proficiency in technology, but what matters more, as you heard from Annalie, is your head and your heart and how you treat to the technology and the purposes for which you use the technology. And I want you to remember that because that is what is going to define whether the world makes it or it doesn't make it. Many of you hear about the climate problems and you know that, look, the burning of the fossil fuels, the practices that we have, even in terms of how we raise our livestock, all of these things contribute to the greenhouse gases. And it's not just now, it's been happening for centuries. It's just that, regrettably, it's our time and it's caught up to it with us. And at the end of the day, you really have to ask yourself what life is about. You want to grow up, you want to do things. But whatever you do, you've got to remember that you're not the only person. And that because you come from a family and a community and a country and a part of this big world, that part of it is to make other people sleep easier, make other people's lives better, and to solve the problems that have humbugged and given people, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, all kinds of challenges. You know, there was a time when going to the dentist or having a baby was something that could risk somebody's life because of infection. But people got together and they found solutions through the creation of antibiotics. And that has made the difference to the ability of us being able to extend people's lives. Technology today can make so many things easier. When I was a kid, I grew up initially in the days of black and white television, like the color of my hair now. And then there was color television. And then I remember at 14, 15, getting to seeing the first videotapes and VCR machines. How many of you know what a videotape in here is now? Mainly the older ones. And those videotapes would oxidize after a while too, because it wouldn't last. And then in music, we went through mini disc, and we went through CDs, and we went through all kinds of technology. You getting where I'm going? The technology kept doing what? Evolving, changing, evolving, changing. And that is why what I'm here to speak to you about, because you've already shown me that you've got the passion for the technology. What I'm here to speak to you about is having the passion for understanding that the difference between the technology being a force for evil and the technology being an instrument of good is who? It's you. It's how you choose to treat to the technology. And I am told that we are also gathering, we're also with people from Bermuda and Iceland, and I'm speaking to you as much as I'm speaking to the kids in Barbados. Because the world in which we live now is just so interconnected, so interconnected. And that's why we're here in this one meeting. But it means that we also have to think, therefore, about others. And when we talk about active citizenship, it is because it's easy for you to do things for yourself. You're hungry, you're going to feed yourself. You want to go to the beach, you want to enjoy yourself, you want to play video games, you're going to take care of what makes you happy, what makes you satisfied. Then if you see your mother or your father or your brother or your sister sad, you're going to try and help them more often than not. True? To find out why they're sad. Because that's your family. And then sometimes those of you who go to church, I hope most of you do, or whatever religion you practice, you're going to be good to the people who you know there too. But what I want you to do is go beyond that. And the people that you don't know, and the people that you've never met but who you may see in need of assistance, and the people who you have heard about, or the friends in school who you kind of know but you really don't know well. If we don't reach out to each other and help each other, then we're not going to be able to have the kind of world that makes it a better place for you to live. You know, I gave a speech at the United Nations recently, and when we were kids, or I was a little older than a kid, probably just leaving secondary school, they had a huge famine in Africa. Huge, huge, huge famine in Africa. And people were dying. The pictures were horrendous and horrific. Regrettably, you're seeing it again arise in some parts of the world. But all of the artists at the time got together and sang. Chantal is here, so that's what I'm reminding you. They wrote a song, just like she writes songs and does really well. They wrote a song that brought all the artists, the top artists together, called We Are the World. Yeah. You know it? Yeah. Come to make a better place to live. Just you and me. And the important point about that song was it wasn't saying that governments are going to make a better place, or presidents and prime ministers will make a better place. It was saying that we, each of us, because each of us, by how we treat each other, can make that difference. And I'm trying to drill that into you because that is the attitude and the ethics of responsibility that I want you to approach your work, but in particular technology. Because technology is such a powerful tool. Such a powerful tool. And as I said, it can be a force for evil, or it can be an instrument of good and empowerment. And we need to ask ourselves every time, what am I doing with this? Am I helping someone, or am I hurting someone? And if you remember those things, then we can get on now to the other business. Yes, we need you to be able to be adept at all the tools that there are. If at the end of the day I can't drive, I have to do what? Walk, or somebody going to drive me. And I'm immediately dependent on somebody else. But if I know how to master the tools, if I know how to master the tools of technology, then I'm in a position to be able to do for me and others, and I'm in a position also to understand when others may be trying to exploit me. And that is the benefit of literacy. And the literacy you first learn is how to read. And then the other literacy you next learn, because if you can't read, I can come in front of you and tell you that this is saying something that it is not saying, correct? And you can't correct me because you can't check it for yourself. And the other thing is numeracy. If you can't add and you can't make change, when you give me $100 and then to give you back $63 and I give you back $36, who gets short? So you always have to be able to count and to be able to be numerate and to know how to make things go. But that's just the basic tools, but the most essential tools, because without that you can't do these other things that you're doing here today. And that's why giving everybody a chance at education is so important, because everybody has the ability to learn, even if we don't do it all at the same rate. And all of us are not good at the same thing. Some people can talk good, some people can write good, some people know how to smile good, some people know how to help good. Everybody has a talent. And it is for us to respect each other's talent. And more often than not in technology, more and often than not, more teamwork is being required. Just like anything where you break new ground, teamwork, how you work with other people matters. The other thing that I want you to know is that those basic skills are necessary, because in today's world, we operate and pursue our life not only for the things that make us happy as a family and individual, but if we want to buy food in a restaurant, we have to have what? And if we want to buy clothes, that even if we're going to make the clothes ourselves, we got to buy the cloth. Not true, you have to have what? So money is necessary in order to do many of the things that we would want to do, and that gives us choice in life. Money must never be our master, but money equally must be a tool, just like technology is. And I want you to remember that, because there's some people who become so obsessed with it that they forget what it does if you hurt other people to get that money. That's why you mustn't steal, that's why you mustn't cheat, that's why you mustn't do certain things to literally offset the integrity of how you relate to money. But too many of our people are not financially literate. So I can give you a very basic example. I can pay $1,000 in rent, or I can pay $1,000 in a mortgage. In a mortgage, does anybody know what happens? What happens eventually if I'm paying a mortgage? You get to own your house. If I'm paying rent, what happens? Just continue to pay and pay and pay and pay, and the money is dead from the time to you, from the time it leaves your pocket. Your landlord is smiling, but when it leaves your pocket, it's dead. And I give you that very, very basic example because our government has set about trying now to include financial literacy as a key part of what every Barbadian must know. And to you in Bermuda and to you in Iceland, it's no different for you. You need to become financially literate. But in my day, you could get away with financial literacy basic like that. Rent and mortgages, bank accounts, shares, options. You get a little excited maybe even about futures and derivatives. But in your day, all kinds of things are happening now because the technology allows you to use blockchain and to do all kinds of things that can literally democratize processes. Now, it can't exist on its own. And that's why we have the rule of law. That's why we have policemen, that's why we have soldiers, that's why we have law courts. Because what gives you the right to decide that you should wear white sneakers and not black sneakers? Girls in Iran today are fighting for what? How many of you know what's happening in Iran?
Cutting their hair.
Exactly. And why are they cutting their hair? I want the kids here, before they leave here, to understand these issues, because people fight for rights and people find different ways to protest and fight for rights. And one of the things that we are understanding more and more is that democratization is generally good, but it has consequences. And the consequences are that if everybody had freedom and nobody had responsibility, what would happen? Chaos, anarchy. And I want you never to forget that, so that we always have to have something called the rule of law that allows us to be able to be fair to each other in a way that your parents most of the time try to be fair to you. Correct? And that is important for you to remember. So it does mean that even though the technology can allow you to do all of these wonderful things, you still have to have somebody watch over you sometimes to make sure, one, that you're not using the technology for evil, and two, that you're not unfairing anybody or nobody is unfairing you in the use of the technology. And I've broken these things down today because it is so easy just to focus on the high, what makes it fly, what makes it great. But if it's going to be with you and you're going to be with it for the long haul, then you have to approach it with these values in mind. And I want you never to forget that. Ironically, this conversation becomes even all the more relevant given what has happened in Barbados this week, when people use the opportunity to be able to go into schools and ask kids all kinds of questions that were not appropriate to ask. And that's why we have to keep watching and monitoring, because at the end of the day, ethics matters. Whether it is for good or for evil matters. And I want you to recall that, because you are the ones who are going to make the change. I'll end on this last point. My very, 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 very first Saturday as a minister in 1994 was on this campus, but across on the other side at the law faculty. And I was a young girl. I still like to think I'm young, but perhaps I know a young woman. But I was a young girl of 28. And when I left, they gave me a gift. And the gift was a mug that had on the words, "This generation shall change the world." And I share that with you because that, along with Bob Marley's "Emancipate Yourself from Mental Slavery," which is really what Marcus Mosiah Garvey preached, but Bob made it popular. And that which comes from the Bible, what does it profit a man to gain the world and to lose his soul, are the things that inspired me over the course of the last 28 years. It's sounding long. But I want you to work out, when you leave here today, what is it that you're going to carry with you in your heads and heart to help anchor you and inspire you? And why? In this small country called Barbados, we're only, 166 square miles of land? We got a lot of water, but very little land. And in this country, we're just under 300,000 people. But we have twice the amount of our population visit us as long-stay tourists. And about 3 times the population visit us every year as cruise ship tourists. And people come from all over the world. And people come with all kinds of messages and all kinds of stories and all kinds of influences. And we can't stop it. Because the very clothes you're wearing, we don't make here. Much of the food, regrettably, you're eating, we don't grow enough of it, although we need to start growing a lot more, because then you control your future. So we can't stop the people from coming. And what it means is that between the numbers of people coming in and the fact that when we pick up this phone or this computer, We have access to information, the entire world. More information than we can ever read or assimilate. So what matters is the values that you have and that your parents instill in you and that your teachers nurture in you and that the adults around you help to reinforce and that you as youngsters remind each other about. Because sometimes all of us need a little reminding from someone who is close to us. And why do I say so? Because you're going to be exposed to all kinds of information and all kinds of people, both as you grow older as kids, as you go to university, and certainly as young adults. And sometimes what you have to remember, you know how sometimes trees, when the wind starts to blow high, as you saw earlier this week, and you see the trees start to do so, and the branches start to do so, the most important thing is that if the roots are in the ground, the tree will do what? It will bend, it will sway. But if it is well rooted, it will not be taken out of the ground. You saw the pictures, who saw the pictures of Hurricane Ian and Hurricane Fiona in the last couple of weeks? And you saw the dreaded devastation that it did. Well, the reason why I'm giving you the talk this morning that I'm giving you is that if you have those values, if you're anchored well, no matter what comes at you, no matter who brings it to you, no matter what they say and how they package it, and you're in the position to discern, to understand, and to have the right values, the most that will happen to you is that you'll sway, but you will remain rooted in who you are and what you believe in. And if you can do that, then take on the world, whether it's technology, whether it's people, whatever it is. But above all else, recognize that we want you to remember that we don't live in this world alone. And that above all else, like Rihanna, like Chantel, like Zane Maloney, like Sir Gary Sobers, you are to be global citizens with Bajan roots. What am I asking you to be? Not with that attitude. Let me hear you again. What am I asking you to be? Last time. And to those in Bermuda and to those in Iceland, I'm asking you to be global citizens with Bermudan roots and to be global citizens with Icelandic roots. Because when you are global citizens in Bermuda and global citizens in Barbados and global citizens in Iceland, what have we done? We've been working to make the world what? Good day. God bless you.
Say thank you so much, Prime Minister Mia Amor Mottley. Thank you so much for that eloquent speech and inspiring all of our youth, not just here in the room here in Barbados, but around the world. And we want to give you a token of our appreciation today. We have a bag with our special
Krypto for Kids Caribbean. Michelle? Yes?
I really should have spoken to the organizers too, but I was so focused on speaking to the kids. I really should thank you guys for doing this kind of activity, thinking outside of the box. Come, Shanta, Anu, for recognizing that we have a duty to let our kids become passionate about something. And I keep telling people the things that we feel most passionate about as teenagers, as young adults, are usually the things that stay with us for life. And the ability to take kids outside of the formal school environment and give them this chance, especially in an area where the world is galloping at a pace with respect to fintech, with respect to crypto, with respect to how we're going to use technology to solve problems, with respect to how we're going to use technology to be able to democratize, as I said, access to so many things. So thank you for not just doing it here, but for also reinforcing our message that we need global citizens with local roots. And in this case, Bajan roots, Bermudan roots, Icelandic roots. I hope that you will go from strength to strength and that we will continue to work with you. But in all things, I ask us always to remember the message, this is a tool, and how we treat to the tool will make the difference in the world in which we live. Thank you.
Thank you.
For the kids? Yeah, we can take it from here.
Would you all like to step up real quick? We'll get some photos. Yes, please come. Come on, everyone. Arya. Come on. Come on, Mom. Yeah, everyone's go front. Maxine, you want to be in it?
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Come into this is the founder of Beach Barbados.
Everyone looking over here, just gonna call it, let's go. 1, 2, 3, everybody just smile. Thank you very much.